JavaScript language basics. So we have to learn the language basics. So with the JavaScript language basics, so we discussed about few important things like what are variables we will see. So technically, yesterday we started working with this. I given you an example for input and output functions, how to manage them. So depending on the requirement, so we can use various techniques. Yeah. So in the language basics, in the variables, we discussed about few important points. These differences, how to declare the variables, how to define the variables. So we discussed variables declaration. We learned about this point, variables declaration. So we discussed this point now, right? Declaring of variables. So input and output functions. So which topic we done in the last concept? We finished this one. Var is over. We have to learn about LET and const. So what are the points about var? So we discussed var defines which scope, var defines which scope. So var defines which scope. Usually var defines function scope, right? Yeah. And var allows shadowing, var allows hoisting. Am I right? It allows shadowing and hoisting. So what is shadowing? Shadowing is what is shadowing? Shadowing is declaring the same name identifier again. Am I right? Declaring the same name identifier. Yes. What is hoisting? Yeah. What is hoisting? Hoisting. So declaring and assigning, and you can use before declaring, right? Yes, good. So that is what actually hoisting is, right? So technically, var supports all these three. Var supports all these three. Next, what is LET? Actually, LET defines. It defines block scope variable. Block scope variable. LET defines block scope variable. So, and that means it is accessible. It is accessible only in the block where it is declared. It is accessible only in the block where it is declared. That's what actually accessibility is. So accessible only in the block where it is declared. So where it is declared, that's what actually the point is. Now important here, it is not accessible outside the block. It will support declaring, it will support rendering or assigning, and it will support initialization. All the three are supported, but it will not support shadowing. Shadowing is not supported. It will not support hoisting also. Hoisting also not supported. So it is more restricted than var. LET is more restricted than var. So it is a block scope variable. For example, suppose here we are defining. So suppose let some x equal to 10. Now it is declared in this block. That means it is function block now. It is function block now. So in which block it is declared, it will be in that block. Don't think that it is function scope. It is function block now, right? Function scope means even if it is declared in another block, it should be accessible. But it is not like that. So if I return if x equal to 10, I am declaring lety equal to 20 and document dot write. So we are printing the value of x is equal to plus x, and in the next line value of y is equal to plus y. So here we are trying to access the x, and x is declared in this block, function block, and it is accessed in that block, it is okay. But y is declared inside if block. Y is declared inside if block, and you are trying to access outside that block, and it is not possible. It is not plausible. So they are block scoped. That means it is not accessible. You can see that it is unable to access y value. You will see in the inspect, in the errors console, it says y is not defined. It says y is not defined. So because y is a block scope variable, it is accessible only in that block. So if it is var, it is accessible anywhere, but it is not accessible outside the block if it is let. If I move this statement inside this, if I move the statement inside this, then you can see here it will display those values. So that means it is block scope variable. It is not accessible outside the block, right? Yeah. So that is accessible only inside that particular block, and it will not support shadowing. Suppose I try to declare lety is equal to 30. I declared lety is equal to 30. That means it is not supported. It says already declared. Var is not like that. Var allows. For example, if I write var y. So now you observe carefully, because sometimes people ask like this also. What happens if I declare var I? You see here, I used var I. It says y is already declared. Remember, identifier means this y. It doesn't care whether it is declared with var or let or const. This name should not be there. That is the meaning of identifier. Understood? Identifier means it is verifying the name. With that name, there should not be anything else. So it can be with var or let or something else. Sometimes people ask, I declare with var, so and the same name, is it valid? It is not valid, because identifier means not the keyword. Identifier means the variable name that you have given. There cannot be same name identifier with any type of content. It cannot be there. Okay, that is what actually. So the point. So it will not support shadowing. Okay, and another point. See, it supports declaring. It supports rendering. It supports initialization. Suppose here we said var x let x. Okay, x equal to 10. So this is declaring, this is rendering, and this is initialization, and all the three are working fine. And you can see all are defined. Only the point is shadowing is not supported, hoisting also not supported. For example, I am using x equal to 10 and the document dot write x is equal to plus x. X is equal to plus x. So here the point is it is equal to x. Now here the point is when you are trying to handle this by using let x, that means you are trying to declare here. So this is hoisting, and you see here it's not working. It says that cannot access before initialization. But it is not a problem if you declare by using var. Var will allow that. It is not a problem. But LET will not allow that. LET will not allow that. So LET is more restricted in access. So it will not allow hoisting. It will not allow shadowing. If you want your variables with some restrictions like not of shadowing, not hoisting and these, then better you go with LED. It's not like which one is best. We decide according to the situation and requirement. All three are used. As per the situation and requirement, we use var or LED or const. Another important is const. Actually, const is also block scope. It is also block scope. It is also block scope. And const is accessible. Remember, it is accessible in block. That means only in block. Same like LED. Oh, same like LED. And the important point is const will not support declaring, will not support declaring, will not support rendering, will not support rendering. So it will support only initialization. Initialization. It will not support declaring, rendering, only initialization is supported. And it will not support shadowing. It will not support shadowing. It will not support hoisting. Hoisting, all are not supported. Even declaration also not supported. That means it must have initialization. Initialization. That means, for example, x equal to 10. Document dot write. So x equal to plus x. So this is not valid. Generally, LET is valid. Variable is var is valid. So declaring is valid, rendering is valid, but here it is not valid, and you can see that. So in the errors, you can see that. So const, it says that missing initializer. It says that missing initializer in the declaration. That means initializer is missing. Const requires initialization. It cannot be used for rendering and all. Suppose I am initializing 30. After that, I am trying to render some 10 into it. So, and I refresh here. It is still having a problem. It says that assignment to constant variable is not possible. That means assignment or rendering is not possible. It supports only initialization. Generally, sometimes we want the data in such a way that at the time of allocating memory, the data must be stored. After that, it should not allow to store any data. That means at the time of initialization of memory, we want some data to be stored, and after that, it should not allow. Such situations will come. So then in that case, we have to use constants for variables. If I use LET or var for variables, they will allow to replace the value later. But we don't want that. We want only at the time of initializing the memory. After that, they cannot be modified. They cannot be modified. So it will not support even shadowing also. That means I say const x equal to some 40. I am redeclaring again. Then it is not possible. It says already declared. It supports only initialization. It supports only initialization. It will not support anything else. So that means many times you want some values to be initialized at the time of allocating the memory. After that, we don't want those values to change. Many people sometimes ask this question like, constant means read only. No, constant is not read only. So constant is related to initialization, not read only. Don't think that read only. That means it is not read only. Read only means what? Actually, read only means it will not allow to change the value. Change the value. Here the concept is it is not allowing to assign a value. It is not allowing to assign a value. Const is not allowing to assign a value. Read only is changing the value, allowing to change the value. It is not changing the value. So that is the reason read-only is different and constant is different. So constant is related to assigning and will not allow to assign value. Read-only will not allow to change value. That is the point. Const will allow only initialization. So it is more restricted than compared to var and let. So that is the difference between var, let and const. Var, let and const. So depending on the situation, we use them and we declare them. So all the three are important for declaring and configuring of variables. So generally, when you are defining the variables, so first point, declaring of variables is mandatory when JavaScript is in strict mode. And you can do that by using var, let and const. And there are three stages: declaration, initialization, and rendering. You have to first know the difference between them. Then you can understand difference between var, let, and const. One more important thing about the variables is actually global scope for variable. That means how to declare global variable. So if you want any variable to be accessed in all functions, then always you have to declare the variable. So global scope of variable. So you have to declare outside the function. Outside the function in module scope actually. So remember this point. Later we will learn about modules like concept, but here observe carefully. So in the script, this is the, suppose this is a general HTML file. So it is a HTML file. So we are writing a program here. Suppose I will create a new file. So variables.js JavaScript file. JavaScript file. This is variables JavaScript file. It is a separate file. And in this JavaScript file, so we are writing a function f1, and we are writing another function f2, and we are calling those functions f1 and f2. Okay. Now, generally, this is all the functions. Remember, outside these, if anyone asks where these functions are present, so where these functions are present, function is, all the functions are present in a module scope. This is module scope. That means JavaScript file, the JS file, is considered as a module. It is considered as a module. And outside in a module, usually module can contain functions. It can contain variables. It can contain classes. Module can contain functions, variables, and classes. Currently, we have only functions. Later, you can create classes. We can create classes. It can contain variables. So it can contain variables. And this is called module. So module. A module comprises of classes, variables, functions, and everything. And whatever you declare in a module, you can access in another module also. So these module-like approaches we will discuss later. When we learn about OOP concepts, we will discuss about that. Initially, the point is, so this is outside the functions. So everything is called module. And in a module scope, if you declare a variable, then it is considered as global variable. If you declare a variable in module, means it is accessible to all functions in the module. It is accessible everywhere inside the module. It is accessible everywhere in the module. That's what actually the point is. So technically, it is accessible everywhere in the module. So let's check this and see. Let's check this and see how we can manage that and how we can handle that, right? So that means now currently, so we have two functions and we are declaring, so x is equal to 10. I can access this. Remember, you can declare by using var, or you can declare by using let, y is equal to 20, and we can use const z is equal to 30. A global variable can be declared by using any of these three keywords. Sometimes in some locations, some people will give you a point like global variables are declared with var. That is completely wrong. So global variable can be declared with var or let or const, all the three. But you know the difference. Var can be shadowed, let cannot be shadowed, const cannot be shadowed, and const and let are used, but let can be rendered, const cannot be rendered. All these rules are same, right? But remember, all three are global variables only. All three are global variables only. If you declare anything in the module scope, it is a global variable. It is a global variable. So you can access here document.write. So X, suppose I am printing like this. So X, Y, and Z in function 1. X, Y, Z in function 1. We want to print those values. So X value and Y value and Z value. So we want to print those X, Y, Z values, and we are printing those X, Y, Z values in function 1. So in function 1, X, Y, Z values can be accessed and used. I'm just using a comma for them, X, Y, Z values. The same statement I'm writing here, X, Y, Z values in function 2. That means they are accessible. This is the file. Okay. We need to link this file inside this here now. That means we have to use script source is equal to so variables.js. You can directly write, you can define like this. Now when I run this, you can see that. So you can see I will put a line break also here. I will put a line break here. That is function 1 and function 2. We have a line break here. Okay, BR. So this is a line break here and it is saved. That means these are accessible in both functions. They are accessible in function 1, they are accessible in function 2. So because they are global variables. Global. How you define a global variable? Just simply declare in the module scope it is a global variable. You declare in a module scope it is global variable. Now in some interviews, so sometimes in interviews a question is asked like, can I declare a global variable? Can I declare a global variable inside a function? Inside a function. So suppose we have a function, so f1, and we have function, so f2, and here, so f1 and f2. Okay. Actually, sometimes what happens is, in different situations, actually what happens is, in real world development, suppose, let it be more clear in the names. I will say get data. And here we say show data. These are two methods. Now get data is a method. So which should get the data by using some AJAX request. It will interact with the database, get the data, and it will use that data. So that means, so here there will be a variable. There will be a variable, suppose data. And this data variable contains the data. It contains the data. Get data, it contains the data. That means we have the data. Suppose we say, so TV, so and some price, and so in stock, something like this we define. Later we will see different types of data types and all. This is just a string we stored. Now the point is I want to print that here, document.write. I want to print the data here, the data here. So get data, we will call the get data, which will get the data. After that show data, it has to print the data. But the data that you have accessed, you stored in a variable inside the function by using var or let or const. Whatever you use, it is function scope only. That means it is accessible only inside the function. It is not accessible outside the function. It is not accessible outside the function. So it is not accessible to the second function. Not accessible to the second function. Now you can check that. You can check that it is not accessible to the second function. It is not accessible to the second function. You can verify this now. So let's run this and see. So when you run this and see, so it is not accessible to the second function. The data is not accessible here. And you see in the console, so the errors, it says data is not defined. At show data. At show data, data is not defined. So it is not available. It is not available. That means you whatever you declared in a function is not accessible outside the function. Now, in interviews, they ask this question like, can I declare any variable inside the function? Can I declare any variable inside the function and make it global in access so that it is accessible to other functions also? Yes, it is possible, but not by using this var. We have to declare the variables by using the keyword window. Window is the keyword. By using window keyword, if you declare a variable, this variable will be stored in browser memory. This variable will be stored in browser memory. So that means it is accessible to any function in the memory. It is accessible to any function in the memory. So this is you can give any name for variable, but it should prefix with window. Window is a browser object. We already learned HTML DOM, right? In HTML DOM, window is the parent object. That means whatever you have defined, it is present. It is present here. Whatever you configured, whatever you defined, it is present in the window scope. Now it is accessible. You can access here. Suppose I am accessing only data. I am not using the keyword window. And I will refresh here. It is working fine. Because if you store in the memory of window, so you are just telling where to store, you can access. This name is enough to access. That means now it is available as a global variable. Global variable means in a function, you can declare a global variable so that you can access and you can use anywhere. In a function also you can declare. Right. So that means, so var is only function scope. It is not any object or any value. So it is only scope. Var means only scope. It is defining the scope. Right? It is defining the scope. It is defining the scope, and it is function scope, not document scope. So here window is just defining the browser memory. Window is defining the browser memory. So in the browser memory, if you store anything, you can access from any function and you can use it. Actually, there are several techniques. Several techniques means, for example, without using any keyword like var or let or const, you can declare a variable. This is also possible. Suppose I said mobile, so I said mobile and I said I am not using var or let or const. Without using keywords, I am declaring a variable in function, then it is considered as window variable. Now it is accessible. It is accessible to other function also. It is accessible to other function also. So then you may ask like, why to use window keyword? Why to use window keyword? Will you ask that? Why to use window keyword? I think you have an answer why to use technique. Why can't we use this technique? Why to use window keyword if this is working? Tell me. Why can't we use the window keyword? Why to use window keyword? Why can't we follow this? Anyone? Anyone kill that? Yes, good. Yes, good, right. Yes, why? Because no, not scope or not global, actually not default, nothing. We learned the rules now. We learned the rules. As per the rules, variable need to be declared or not? As per the rules, variable need to be declared or not? If it is in strict mode, will it work? If it is in strict mode, if I keep JavaScript in strict mode, that means use strict. Is my declaration valid? Is my declaration valid? No. That means in strict mode, variable need to be declared now. And for that, so if I write in strict mode, that means now this is not valid. Understood? So that is the reason we prefer using window. As per the standards, we use window. That is the window. Whenever you are declaring variable, right? So generally people have different suggestions actually. People have different suggestions in a function. But we don't follow all of them because they have no proper standards. We have to always follow the standards. Observe carefully, I will show you PMD. So PMD is a code analyzing software. So here you can find, go to documentation. You go to rule reference, ECMA script rules, and best practices. So you see global variable is there. I click on global variable and it says that global variable. So use this window and the global variable in a function if you want to declare. Understood? This is recommended by those who are maintaining the standards of the language we are learning. Understood? This is not some W3 schools website. This is the people who are developing our language, right? These are the people who are maintaining standards of our language. We will not consider what tutorial point is doing, what Edureka is telling, or what Java point is telling. We don't care at all them, right? We just care about the standards of the people who built it. Understood? Because some people come with a question like, sir, in a website I have seen in another way. We don't care all those ways. We only care only what the standards are recommended by the people who built it. I hope you know that people who built are better than the other people who tell you about that particular language, right? That is the reason. So always we follow the standards. So as per the standards, what it says, that is important. That is the reason this is the best practices recommended by the people who maintain standards for JavaScript. As per ECMA standards, this is how we have to define a global variable inside a function. So that is the reason we better follow the same standards. Because when you don't follow the standards, consistency issues will come, compatibility issues will come, some browsers cannot understand them. So we have to avoid all of that and we have to follow the strict rules for that. So this is the key point. So how we define the global variables. How do we define the global variables? So any variable declared outside function is global. You can declare with var, or you can declare with let, or you can declare with const. And if you want to declare a global variable in a function, then you have to do that by using window. That is what global scope for variable. Another important while working with variables, some basic rules of variables are same, basic naming conventions of variable. Actually, you know already, I think many of you in same other languages, name must start, variable name must start with an alphabet or underscore. Variable name must start with an alphabet and underscore. So it can contain numbers. It can contain numbers. So, but cannot start with number. But cannot start with number. Start with number. So that means your variable names must start with an alphabet or underscore. Many people ask like, sir, can I use dollar? Can I use percent? As per the standards, don't use any special characters. Don't use any special character in variable. So variable except underscore. Don't use any special character in variable except underscore. So it's not recommended to use because some variables, some characters will escape. So while in different situations, that is the reason don't ever use any special characters in variables. Now one important point, another point is, so variable name can be maximum 255 characters long. So make sure that when you are giving the variable names, so actually the size of variables, names and strings, they change according to browser. Every browser have different size and capacity because every browser have different memory. For example, you might have heard that many times you might have heard that world's world's fastest browser is Opera. Have you heard about that? World's fastest browser is Opera. Have you heard about that? So in the early days, when you used smartphones, the first browser you used on mobile smartphones was Opera Mini. Have you seen that? Opera Mini is the first browser you have seen on your mobiles actually. Before Chrome and all these browsers came, Opera Mini is the first browser that we used on smartphones. And Opera is considered as the fastest browser. Now, if anyone says that Opera is the world's fastest browser, that means the point here is, that means when you are using internet on Opera browser, it seems to be fast. But do you think, is it a correct statement? That means internet speed depends on your browser. Internet speed depends on your browser. Internet speed doesn't depends on browser. It depends on your modem capacity. Am I right? That means then how anybody can say that Opera is fastest browser or Safari is fastest browser? So that statement is wrong actually, because internet speed doesn't depends on browsers. But browsers have an impact on speed. How they have an impact on speed? Because Opera has large cache memory. It has large cache memory. Opera is having large cache memory. That means buffer. If it is having large cache memory, it can store lot of data in memory. And it can provide that data step by step to you faster. That means at a time, it can take more data into buffer and provide you to that. Due to this reason, it looks like it is working fast, but actually it is not fast. It is using more data. It is picking up more data and showing you. It seems like fast, but it is not actually fast. So that is the point actually. Every browser has its own memory. That is the reason you see you have an address bar. This is address bar. In address bar, we can type the URL. How many characters are supported in this address bar? That is query strings. Generally, people, this is also a question asked in interviews. If you remembered, in HTML, I told you how many characters are standard supported. Remember, I told you get and post methods while learning HTML form. How many characters are supported maximum?
Yes.
Remember that number? The maximum number of characters that are supported in query string. Remember that, anyone? Because those are all questions asked in interviews.
Yes.
How many characters are supported? So if you remembered, I given you in the note also 2048 characters. Remember that number?
Yes.
Remember that number 2048 characters. I given you that in a concept of post and get method, get and post method.
Yes.
2048 characters it can allow in the URL, but not in all browsers. For example, if you are using Firefox, so Mozilla Firefox, it has the capacity of 65,000, so 535. If you are using Opera, it have the capacity of 1,60,000, so 1,90,000, 1,90,000. That means it depends on browser and its memory. Every browser can have its own memory. That is the reason. So variable name doesn't have any standard limit. Depends on browser, but we recommend maximum 255 characters only. Understood the point? That means, so nobody will tell you that, so variable name is it will not accept more than 255. We are not saying that it will accept only 255. We are saying that it must be 255 only. Understood? So we are not saying that it will accept only 255 characters. We are saying that it must be within 255. That will be better. Otherwise, issues will come when you are dealing with different types of browsers. So some browsers will not support lengthy, some browsers will support lengthy. So because they don't have the memory. So that is the reason, as per the standards, always use this 255 characters long. And one more important question is, when you are declaring a variable, so for variables, you can use underscore. A variable name can start with underscore, emp details. That is the variable name. So now, generally, what is the meaning of underscore? What is the meaning of underscore for a developer? Why a developer uses underscore for variable names? What is the meaning of underscore? Can anyone tell that? Yeah. So we discussed this earlier. Underscore indicates that. Underscore with any name indicates that it requires later implementation. Understood? That means its work is not final. It requires later some implementation. If you are declaring any object, if you are declaring any variable which needs further implementation, then you have to denote that with underscore. Then developer can understand that, okay, it is not final, it needs further implementation. That is the developers, as per the developers coding standards, underscore is used to denote that it requires implementation. If you use underscore. And not in between. Suppose if you write here emp underscore details. This is not implementation. This is just separation concerns. That means I want to be more clear in separating the variable name to tell. Actually, before underscore, whatever you write is it defines the object. That means it defines the class. A class, so or it defines the object, and after that it defines the purpose. That means it defines the class and the purpose. That means suppose I said some txt or say btn submit. This indicates that it is a button used for submitting. Suppose I defined like btn So btn underscore reset, it is a button used for reset. Or you can use a camel case representation. Generally in projects we recommend camel case. Camel case, I hope you might have heard in so many times. Camel case means btn submit. That is how we write without using spaces. This is what recommended for variable names. This is what recommended for variable names. This is how we have to write the variable names as per the standards. So technically, when you are defining the variables, these are all the points about the variables, defining the variables and configuring the variables. So we have to follow all these standards while declaring variables. So how to declare variables? What are the naming points of the variables and what are the various keywords used for declaring variables? That is variables in JavaScript. Next important, data types. JavaScript data types. Actually, generally, data type actually data type defines data structure. Data type defines data structure. When you declare a variable, you have to define the structure of that variable. Data type defines the data structure. Data structure means data structure specifies what type of data you can store and how much, so what size of data you can store, what type of data you can store, what size of data you can store. That is defined by data structure. Data structure means it refers to the type and size. So data type uses the data structure. Data type is referring to data structure. Data structure is referring to data. So generally, when anyone asks what is data type, then immediately, generally the answer comes, data type tells what type of data to store. That is okay, good, that is good. But technically definition is data type refers to data structure. That is the correct answer. Your answer, what type of data is stored, is also correct, but it is not technically correct. That means first correct answer is this one. So data structure. Second correct answer will be this. This is the second priority answer. So always we have to tell the first priority definition. First definition. Data type refers to data structure. Then anybody who knows what is a data structure, he knows the meaning. So data structure means what type of data it can store, how much size it can store. That comes under data structure. That is what actually data structure is, right? Technically, we have two options. We have data type, and so data type defines the data structure and the size. What type of data and its size. And important is JavaScript is implicitly typed. JavaScript is implicitly typed language. That means no predefined data types. So are defined. Predefined data types are configured for variable. So the data type will be determined according to value. Data type will be determined according to value. So that means JavaScript is implicitly typed. Generally, several languages are not implicitly typed. Suppose you are using C, C++, .NET, Java, and all these languages. When you declare a variable, so we declare a variable. So we define the data type. That means int x. That means it is integer. So or we say x is a number. It is storing a number type like this. That means it is a number, it is a string, it is a boolean. These data types are defined here. But JavaScript is not having any explicit data types. JavaScript is not having any explicit data types. The data type of this variable will be determined according to the value you assign. Value you assigned. That means you assigned 10, then X is a number now. You can see X is number. So you assigned a string, then X is a string now. X is a string now. That means it will be determined, not runtime, it will be determined at compile time only it is determining. Na? It is determining now itself, right? It will be determined according to the value assigned. When you assign a value, based on that, it will determine. So whether it is a number or string, So here another problem is there. We don't have a solution for this problem. We have to explicitly handle. The problem is it is not strongly typed. That means JavaScript is not strongly typed. Strongly typed languages are very important and very much required these days. If you are not using a strongly typed language, then a lot of issues will come. Explicitly we have to handle. Majority of all programming languages that you are learning are strongly typed. But JavaScript is not strongly typed. What is strongly typed means you have assigned X a number, X number. And after that, into that I am storing some string, it is valid. After that I am storing some boolean, it is valid. It will not restrict. We have to explicitly verify. We have to explicitly check the values, verify the values and validate the values. So this is the problem with JavaScript. It is not strongly typed. Strongly typed languages means if you say number, they will not allow any another thing into it. Strictly number. So, but it is not like that. This is not strongly typed language. It will allow any type of value. So this is the problem with JavaScript variables actually. So there are no explicit data types. So the data type will be determined according to the value you have assigned. And it is not strongly typed because once you define a data type, you can transform that with any another type again. That is the problem with the types. But important is, so what type of values you can store in a variable in JavaScript? Actually, JavaScript data types are classified into two types. So we have primitive types, and we have non-primitive types. We have primitive types and non-primitive types. So what is difference between primitive and non-primitive types? What are primitive types and non-primitive types? Actually, so why they are called primitive types and non-primitive types? What is the difference between the primitive and non-primitive types? Actually, the point is primitive types usually, so primitive types are immutable types. That means they have a fixed range of values. That values range will not change according to state and the situation. They have a fixed range of values. Immutable types have a fixed range of values. That means they cannot be changed. The range cannot be changed. They have a fixed range for values. For example, I will tell you, suppose X is a number. Currently X is number. Now, if anyone asks how much number I can store inside X, you cannot say unlimited, infinity. There is nothing like unlimited infinity. There is a range also. I will show you the range. I am printing here, document.write. I am printing here. So minimum integer value, min integer value. So min integer value. So I will write here is number dot min safe integer. I am just extracting the value and showing you. And the max integer value, integer is number number dot max safe integer. I am printing the range of number allowed in JavaScript and showing you. And you can see this is the range of number. That means you can handle any number only within this range. Only within this range. That means it is not like unlimited number. You can store anything you want. You cannot change this range. It is having a fixed range. That is why it is immutable. It has certain range. You cannot change the range. Minimum this, maximum this. That's it. You cannot store anything other than that. Anything other than that. We have a fixed range for the values. These are immutable types. These are immutable types. They have a fixed range for your values. You cannot change the range. You cannot change the range. You cannot change the range. So, and another important here is, so they are stored in memory. They are stored in memory stack. They are stored in a memory stack. When they are stored in a memory stack, they use the mechanism last in, first out. They use the mechanism last in, first out. That is nothing but simple. Already we know that mechanism last in, first out. Suppose x equal to 10 and x equal to 10. After that x equal to 20. After that x equal to 40. And I said document dot write x equal to plus x. Which value will come out first? Which value will come out? So obviously the last value will come out. Understood? The last value that goes into that variable, that is the first value to come out. Am I right? That means that is the mechanism. That is the mechanism, stack mechanism it uses. So that means it will not allow any random access. It will not allow random access. If I want to access 20, can I access 20 here? If I want to access 20, can I access 20? So x is declared with, assigned with 20. Can I access 20? You cannot access 20. Stack will not allow random access. Stack will allow only one by one. So last item. So this is what the primitive types behavior is. This is the primitive types behavior. So, and what are the various primitive types available in JavaScript? The JavaScript primitive types, we have a number type, we have a string type, we have a Boolean type, so we have a null type, and we have undefined type. These are all the JavaScript primitive types. And what is number, string, Boolean, null, undefined? What are the limited types? What are the numbers you can store? String, Boolean, null, undefined. These we will see in our next session, right? Tomorrow we'll continue with this. Tomorrow, if we can finish these data types, then we can put them in one example and we will see how to utilize them in our examples, right? Tomorrow we'll continue with these data types and discuss about them, okay? Right. After learning few concepts of language only, you can try examples. You cannot write directly examples on them without language. For a few days, we will first learn the language, then we will implement in examples, okay? Right. So here string is not primitive type because it is having a limited range of values. So it is not your .NET or Java, right? Here it is having limited, restricted range. That is the reason it is also a primitive type.